You're listening to Let's Get Surety. Let me hear your bonding talk with Kat Shamapande.
Hey everyone, it's Kat Shamapande. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Let's Get Surety. So there's been a lot of discussion on the PPP or Paycheck Protection Program. We've talked about it on other episodes of this podcast. And today we're going to really dive into the loan forgiveness application process. Borrowers may be feeling anxious right now to apply for forgiveness, but it's really important to take a step back and consider that it might not be best to rush into the forgiveness process. Our guest today is here to talk with us about this. So we have Marty McCarthy, CPA and CCIFP. He's NASBP. He's on the NASBP CPA Advisory Board and a managing partner at McCarthy and Company. Thanks so much for joining us today, Marty.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's great to have you. Before we dive into the topic, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about McCarthy and Company?
Absolutely. I'm a CPA licensed in Pennsylvania. We are a CPA firm that specializes in the construction industry. Recently this week, our firm was named one of the top 50 accounting construction firms in the country by Construction Executive, something we're very proud of. We spend a lot of time, obviously, in the construction industry. The issues that contractors face are different than most other industries. We've delved into many of those issues and spend a lot of time dealing with the complexities that they have to face. So we have a knowledge base that's not like a general practitioner in accounting. We spend a lot of time going over their bonding issues, their tax issues, all things that are specific to help the contractors grow. We spend a lot of time with bonding agents, underwriters, et cetera, to help further their knowledge in the construction industry as well. And it's something we've taken a lot of pride in, continuing to focus on an industry that we really think never has issues, in the sense that there's always construction work. Bridges don't get younger, roads don't get younger, buildings don't get younger. So we spend a lot of time there. We have two offices, one in Tinton Falls, New Jersey, and one in Lafayette Hill, PA. And over 30 people work with us. So we're very proud of it, and looking forward to sharing any insight I can on the payroll protection loan forgiveness with you today.
Well, it's great to have you. I mean, I know you guys, McCarthy and Company, has been putting out a lot of information around the PPPs, and it's something we're all talking about. It seems like all the time right now. So if we're talking about forgiveness, what is it really that a company needs to do for their PPP loan to be forgiven? I know there's been some back and forth on this and some different information that's kind of come out in a staggered way. Is there a bottom line on this now?
There is always a bottom line. I'd like to say to people, we have the final interim rulings until we have the new final interim rulings. So they move pretty quickly. There's proposed legislation now in the HEALS Act that is proposed in the Senate that could modify what we talk about today. So one thing to remember with this is it's very fluid. It is not static, although we would like it to be static at some point. We can only base it on what we know today. So we have guidance that is still there. There are still some issues that are outstanding that could be changed.
Yeah. Oh, well, and with that being said, I just think it's important to say we're recording this on August 4th. So all the information that Marty and I discuss is relevant as of August 4th, because this plane is being built as it's flown, right, Marty?
And they're figuring it out on the fly.
Yeah. So when should a company or when can they apply for forgiveness on their PPP
companies
loan?
Can apply. What we have talked to our clients about, companies can apply for forgiveness under the Payroll Protection Act. As it was written the first time, there was 8 weeks to spend the money and a bunch of other rules and regulations that went with that. Under the Payroll Protection Flexibility Act that was passed, now companies have up to 24 weeks to spend that money on eligible costs. There are some little nuanced differences, including in the latter act, where there is certain amount of leeway with regard to an employee headcount. So one of the criteria of the loan was you had to maintain your employee headcount as to your pre-COVID levels. there is now some flexibility in what you have to do because you may not be able to bring workers back. Your work may have suffered in the sense that you don't have the work. People could become sick. People could refuse to come back. We're seeing that. So what a company was penalized because, quite frankly, I have a family and I'm worried. I don't want to go to a work environment where I could be suspect to the virus. So there was protections built in. So the question really becomes, when do we, as a business owner, apply? What we're looking at is, when I'm done, when am I done with the money? When does the money run out?
Right.
If the money runs out, we're looking at get prepared to file for forgiveness. Now, the SBA and the banks are planning on Friday having the platform ready that you can start applying for forgiveness. So no one's really doing anything before then.
Is that Friday, August 7th, Marty?
Yeah. So we're expecting applications to start the 10th for forgiveness.
Okay.
So you can start the application process. Now, each person and company that borrowed is going to face kind of different ways in which they apply for forgiveness. Some lenders are using pure portals. Some are basically scanning and sending their documents into their lender. So there's little nuances within your own lending institution that every borrower is going to have to face and address. But what you need to do is basically start gathering information. The information is on the loan forgiveness application form. So we're recommending people, once you're done with the money, start applying for forgiveness. With exceptions, of course. There may be a full-time employee issue that you do not meet, and you're going to have to meet it later. In other words, if you had 10 full-time employees and you're down to 8, and 20% of your loan is not going to be forgiven, you can apply, but you are going to have to wait until you can get to the full-time equivalent of 10 employees in order to get full forgiveness. Or December 31st of 2020, you can get to 10 employees. So there's a lot of little nuances that are very specific to each company. You have to look at where your company is and where your company is going before you determine the best time to apply for forgiveness. So if your headcount hasn't changed, you spent the money, and you're comfortable, get the application process over with. You submit it, and the bank is going to have 60 days to give you forgiveness, their decision, and at that point in time, you can move on from the PPP program.
So it sounds like it's important that you reach out to your CPA and really have a conversation with them about these nuances. Does that sound right?
Yes. You should be able. Everyone should be checking with their CPA, their internal staff, to make sure they follow the criteria of the program. In other words, did we spend the money? Yes. Did we spend it in the right proportion to what the percentages are that the program requires? Do we have the full-time employee count covered? Did we have the payroll reduction covered? Those are all factors that are specific to each company. Company A may have no issues. They've done everything. They've not cut employees. They maintain counts, and they spent the money appropriately. Company B may have different ones. So you have to look at where we are short potentially in our application to get full forgiveness, and see if there are ways that you can now, between now and the end of the year, to make up those differences so that you maximize your loan forgiveness.
So those can be important factors in deciding why it might be better to wait. Is that right?
Absolutely. You may wait because you want to get, you have work coming down, and you're going to have full-time employees coming down the road. There's a reason to wait. Restoring employees to their proper levels of compensation is a reason to wait. You also may have other business decisions that other things are more pressing. You have 10 months from after your covered period in order to apply for forgiveness. So if you feel that forgiveness is not an issue and you're going to get it, and there's more pressing issues, you can wait. But for the most part, I'm recommending that the people that we work with, you apply for forgiveness as soon as you have all the information you need. And if you have limitations, we've been able to address them. Once the limitations are addressed, then apply for forgiveness.
So collecting all that information, all that documentation you've been doing throughout this process, is that what you're talking about, Marty?
Yes. So generally your payroll reports, your payroll summaries, and a lot of payroll companies have been very good about providing reports that substantiate the position you've taken on your payroll protection loan. So there's a lot of that that's pre-populated by the payroll companies, but gathering that information and having that in an orderly fashion, filling it out on the application process properly, it's an important thing. You got to remember these banks are going to be getting thousands of these.
Right.
You don't want it to make it a cumbersome audit trail for the banks.
So you've mentioned a lot of the advantages of waiting. What would you say is the biggest advantage?
Probably the biggest advantage of waiting is you're not going to inundate. It's not going to come at a time when banks are getting inundated. Would probably be one of the advantages. The other advantage is to kind of see if, as we've talked about, this thing changes. If
Right.
there are other changes that come up, there's talks in the Senate now that if certain loan amounts, you're going to have automatic forgiveness. You just sign a piece of paper and attest that you spent the money. So you kind of go through a process for what if you didn't need to. That would be the biggest reason that people would wait, and also to get their head count back up to where it needs to be.
Okay. How can a company really work to maximize their chances of having their full loan forgiven?
The way the companies are going to maximize it is it's. I think people kind of overthink this. You get the money, you spend the money, and you spend it on the appropriate cost. So by that,
and you document it, right?
Well, yeah, that's the first part. First, you got to spend it, then you got to document it. So you get the money, you spend the money. If you're on the 24-week, you're doing 60% of it on payroll, 40% on other things. You can do 100% on payroll. Then once you're done documenting, so if we spent 75% of our money on payroll costs that are covered payroll costs, that's easy. We provide a payroll summary from the period we borrowed the loan, our covered period, to the end. We have that support. If we've made lease payments, we want copies of the canceled checks. If we've made and a copy of the lease, health insurance payments, we give copies of the invoices as well as the canceled checks. You're creating a file that's making it very, very easy for someone to file. I'm going through payroll, I can tie to payroll. I go through health insurance, I can tie through health insurance. All those things, you're making it as seamless as possible. You want to have the documentation for the covered cost in order to substantiate your position. And documentation we are recommending are canceled checks and invoices to be submitted. Everything on that report you have backup for, not just, hey, I paid it. Here's the proof that I paid it. Here's a canceled check. Here's the amount coming out of my bank account, and you can substantiate it.
So you talked a little bit about the different banks having possibly different application processes. Do you have any information on what is involved in the application process, or is it going to vary?
Typically, it's all internally. How those banks are processing it. There is the application form itself that everyone is going to complete, and then there is uploading of the supporting documents behind it. So basically, when you fill out the application, you're listing what your costs were. Behind those costs, then they ask for the documentation. So your costs are my gross wages, my health insurance, any retirement contributions that have been made, any state and local taxes that have been assessed at the employer level. All those things are one component. Then you have your covered rent, if you've paid rent, interest on mortgage obligations, any leases you have paid, any utilities you have paid. So you're basically putting them into buckets and providing the support for those buckets. And then the banks, I'm dealing with a smaller bank here, who's I think probably been one of the best PPP lenders around, but they're basically, hey, just put it in line by line with tabs in place that say, here's utilities, here's insurance, et cetera. And they've done that. So the banks are kind of doing the same thing on a portal level where you upload everything. The problem with some of the big banks, I don't know if there's a question on something you provide, how they're going to reach out to you to provide you, for you to provide color to it. So we try to make it as I like to say, we try to make it one step above coloring, so that there are no questions.
If a company goes through this whole process for the application for forgiveness, and part of their loan or the entire loan is not forgiven, can they appeal? What's the next step there?
That has not been addressed yet.
Okay.
That's a great, and we hear that. What if we don't like the answer? Now, typically, many of the people that have applied have a commercial lender that they have dealt with while they're submitting it. So you want to be in touch with your lender to make sure that they are advocating for you, and making sure that the documentation you provided is adequate. A lot of the banks that had portals for the application process, many of our clients still talk to their commercial loan representative to make sure that, here's what I submitted, but any questions, you reach out to me. So you have to advocate. I'd recommend people to continue to advocate to their bank, to their lender specifically, if there are any questions. When you submit it, you want to let your lender know personally, not just in the portal, I've submitted my application. If there are questions, keep the lines of communication open. Generally, that's the best way in many things, is open and honest communication. You may forget something. You shouldn't have a loan not forgiven because you missed a week's payroll by an oversight. You don't want that to happen, but if it does happen, you want to make sure you're in communication with your lender.
So it's really important to communicate with your CPA, with your lender. What's the role of the bond producer? I feel like the bond producer, since they're always a business advisor for their construction clients, can play a strong role here as well.
Well, you're the bond producer itself, the underwriter, the agent. Whom are you?
The agent. Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of that. Here's one thing that's been interesting, that a lot of bonding companies that we've talked to, there's been a big push for people that have received over $2 million in PPP loans, that the government is going to review every one of those applications for forgiveness, and you're going to be held to a different standard, if you will. So we've talked to bond agents where they are asking the bond companies to write letters to support the client needing the PPP loan for working capital, for bonding requirements, because that is a business reason why I needed to make sure I got the PPP loan. Some bond companies have done that. They've written letters saying, based on your current financials, we believe, in order to maintain your current bond line and your bond capacity, and in light of the uncertainty in the pandemic, we fully expect you to apply and receive the maximum PPP loan so we can continue to support your bond line. That's been an important part, and I think the agents that have done that and been advocating for their clients in that regard are very proactive, and that's what we need to see. Agents that are saying, look, you need to do this. We all know the application says if there's economic uncertainty. Anyone who doesn't think there's economic uncertainty with what's going on, I don't know what world they live in. We don't know what it is. And it's not just the short-term economic uncertainty, it's the long-term. You and I have heard from people that budgets are being cut or jobs are being postponed or canceled right now. So yeah, there's uncertainty. But bond agents can really help advocate for their clients by saying, you know what, I'm going to go to the bond company. We need to document that you needed to apply for this loan. That's an important part. Because if the government comes back and says, why? You can say, I have to run my business. Here's my bonding company telling me, in order to keep my line, a bond line as I need to do this. That's an important criteria.
So what advice is it that you're giving your clients on PPP loan forgiveness right now?
The advice I'm giving my clients on PPP loan forgiveness is, if we're done, we understand the process, we've spent the money, and we have the documents, let's get the process started. There's still uncertainty going forward. Were some of these expenses not deductible and now they are deductible? That's a whole different thing. But to get the process going, because once we come out of this pandemic, and once things start to return to whatever normal is, you don't want to have anything to backlog you. In other words, you don't want these things hanging on your head that I got to get this done or I have to get that done. You don't want to miss a deadline because all of a sudden you're worrying about your PPP application and you're bidding a massive job and things get caught up and things get sloppy. So when you have the opportunity, let's get it done. We're recommending to people that we pre-audit, for lack of a better word, their application to make sure if someone's looking at this, everything is in here that would support your position. Have another set of eyes look at the application. We all get so close to a situation, sometimes we miss the forest from the trees. So have someone else look at your application that understands the application process and the forgiveness application process, and provide back support and or feedback as to why this application will or will not be approved for forgiveness. So we're advocating for our clients to start the process, allow us to review the application and the support to make sure that you're going to maximize the forgiveness that you would be entitled to.
Yeah, I think it's really good advice. I mean, make sure that you're prepared. Don't rush into this without being prepared to submit your forgiveness application. But also when you've got your information already and you've had it reviewed by your CPA and you're ready to move forward, you don't need to just hang on and wait there either.
Correct.
Go ahead and move forward.
You did all the work. You have it's move on from that phase in your life, if you will.
I think we all wish we could move on from this phase in our life someday.
Whoever said 2020 and 5 years ago, this is where I thought I would be, is lying.
Yeah, I feel like you're right on that, Marty. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. If people want to get more information from McCarthy and Company, where should they go to get that?
Sure. You could go to our website. It's mcc-cpas.com. We have a COVID-19 resource page, which has a lot of information. My contact information is on there as well under Contact Us. If it's anything related to payroll protection or anything construction related, we're here. We're constantly taking on new assignments, new engagements to help contractors continue to grow and help what we can do to foster the economy here. It's we all got to contribute as best we can.
Well, I also want to mention you can take a look at NASBP's COVID resources page as well. Marty and his firm have shared some great resources that you'll find posted there, as well as resources from other CPA firms and law firms as well. So there's a lot of great information you can get there as well. Thanks so much for joining us, Marty. We'll have to have you back sometime.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good one.
You've been listening to Let's Get Surety, brought to you by the National Association of Surety Bond Producers. For more information about the NASBP and its members, visit nasbp.org.